Hello and welcome to one of the great pearls of the British seaside. It's Brighton, and could we have picked a better day for day one of what's going to be a really exciting competition to find Britain's strongest man. And as you can tell, there's a distinct sort of Edwardian flavour about Brighton, and you'll probably see a lot of that during the competition. We're going back to the days when the strongman was really a part of everyday life, and we're going to recreate some of those amazing feats before your very eyes. Now, let me tell you, we have 8 competitors, and those 8 competitors will take part in each and every one of the 8 events you're going to see on this programme. So let us now say hello to the competitors.
And first off, Errol Carnegie, who came to London in 1959, judo very much his speciality, and he weighs in on the old scales at 299.4. Hamish Davidson, from Nairn in Scotland, 27 years old, is a Highland Games champion, who is also a mink farmer, would you believe? On to Andy Drewiecki, who has been the British heavyweight weightlifting champion for the past 5 years, and he's got a few good Commonwealth titles under his belt as well. Selby Prince, the youngest by far at 20. Other things is trying to get a strength comedy act together in his spare time. John Sedge now, who did most of his sports in the Royal Marines from 65 onwards for 12 years, now specialises in hammer throwing. University in California, also was Britain's strongest man in 1980. Alan Taylor now, who is 30 years old, amongst other things, has been wrestling for the last 5 years and now wrestles under the name of the Giant Anaconda. And Peter Welsh, who was born in London, lives in fact, and one of his great things is he wants to break into singing, operatic singing.
Mr. Le Gaulle, who lives in a small village in France, claims to be the strongest man in the world. He can hitch his teeth to 4 railway trucks and haul them along the track.
Well, here at the seaside, we're about to emulate Mr. Le Gaulle, not quite with 4 trucks, but we have the first of 8 events, which is our traction engine pull, close on to 4 tons of heavy metal. And in front of that, not far off, 4 tons of heavy flesh. Alan Taylor attempting to get things going, and as I'm seated in my commentary position with my co-commentator, Jeff Capes, we're ready for some exciting action in this competition. Well, that's certainly rolling on okay, and that's the important thing, to get it rolling and keep it rolling.
Alan being very tall, in fact the heaviest man today in the competition, finding it pretty easy. But unfortunately using a very, very high pull here and not pulling a direct line to the machine.
And of course that could prove a bit of a problem for Alan, being up as high as he is, because obviously to lean down as much as you can towards the floor is going to give you a bit better leverage. But having said that, he seems to be doing extremely well. Offline a little bit, but it doesn't matter. I bet that line looks a million miles away to him. There he goes, straight down on top of it, and he gets himself a 51.4 and still manages to raise a smile as well. How is that it? Well, now Alan getting a little bit of expertise from John Sedge, saying fill up your lungs, as we move to Hamish Davidson now. Off the blocks, he's not going to be settling for a 51.4 if I know the way he wants to compete. He's got to keep moving.
Hamish using small steps, head low, going for that line. Hamish, in fact, a very underestimated Highland Games athlete, very coordinated and going all the way to that line.
Actually, it's amazing, because Hamish looks like he could be just out on a Sunday afternoon walking the dog. I mean, it's incredible. Look, short, sharp steps. There's no question he's going to beat that 51.4. And as he gets to the line, doesn't even drop his arms down. He goes into the lead with a very comfortable 40.5. We saw lots of short, sharp jabs with the feet. Is that the secret of pulling that?
I think so, yeah. I can still feel the weight all the way, you know. The pressure is on the legs all the time. I really feel it now.
Do you feel confident now at this stage in the game that with 11 seconds leads on Alan that you might have this in the bag?
I don't think that's unbeatable. It might be difficult to beat.
Well, I can tell you it wasn't all a bed of roses. Look at this.
John having a lot of problems here on this occasion. He's not finding traction there with his shoes on the concrete at all.
Yeah, John Sedge coming to a dead halt at that point. Andy Drevietsky as well had a few problems.
The shoes just couldn't get any grip. Oh, they're useless. I told you, Derek, this morning at breakfast time.
Well, yeah, the body
Look, mate. Hey, throwing the buckles off these things, couldn't get any grip. I've got to get the thing going.
Well, Andy Drevietsky there complaining about lack of grip, and indeed, that's what happened to Selby Prince here at this point.
Selby Prince having all sorts of problems here. His body is in fact far too low to the pull on the engine, and his shoes are not gripping at all. He's not directing his force in one line, and it's going all over the place.
Well, now you're going to see something a bit different. The engine motoring along at a fair lick. Well, why is it going that fast? Who's pushing it? Nobody is. My co-commentator Jeff Capes is showing how it should be done. A full load on there, nearly 4 tons, and he's been itching to get involved in this, and there he is having a go. Oh, look at that. That's how you do it, lads. John Sedge now with a lightened load, slightly lighter than before.
And we have John Sedge, having learnt from his first mistake of keeping too low, in fact he's pulling in a direct line now, really powering home on this occasion, full traction on the surface, no problems at all.
So, as John goes, slaps hard into the concrete there, 56.7 then for John Sedge. I think he's slightly more pleased with that second try than he was before. Oh yes, definitely more pleased. Nice little look at Brighton Pier on a lovely day here for these splendid games as we get back to the starting line for Errol Carnegie's second run. Here we go. The engine, of course, now has been lightened a little bit because it was found to be difficult for most of the lads. So a good amount of water has been taken out. Errol Carnegie slightly all over the place at the moment, losing valuable traction there. But nevertheless, he is keeping it moving. That's the most important thing. Harness, taut, now he's got it in a line. He's getting himself a pace together, which is great. That's good. Those front wheels still wobbling a bit.
Errol Carnegie having a real problem here, making a desperate attempt to keep the machine in a straight line, and in fact having a lot of problems. But I'm sure Errol is as gutsy as anybody else and will finish.
Yeah, absolutely. 56.7 is what we're looking to beat, yes. And an arm goes over. Ooh, the lads have got to be down there a bit sharpish to stop the machine rolling. 51.2 then for Errol Carnegie on his second attempt. Drevietsky actually didn't have too much joy in his second attempt, as you can tell from his face there. He didn't manage to move it at all. And Richard Slaney now, he's got to go out to try and beat the lot of them now to get himself into third position. And it's the 51.2 of Carnegie that Richard is looking to. At the moment he's looking at the tarmac, but he's got a good pace going there, and I think he's got every chance of getting, yes, well, what can I tell you? A gentle lean across the line, and Slaney finishes at 42, putting himself into third position.
Here we go with a look at the scoreboard for the first time. Bearing in mind, of course, that our first two contestants did manage to pull their weights, the original weights, before the load was lightened. They are Hamish Davidson at the top of the table at the moment with 8, and Alan Taylor with 7.
He's been getting his teeth into things for years. He can take on a motorbike for breakfast. With the bike revving and his gnashers gnashing, the only thing to give is the rope. Batty Sugru, licensee of the Admiral Nelson in Kilburn, now takes on a barrel of beer weighing 2 1/4 hundredweight. Batty's offering £500 to any publican in Europe over 40 who can equal his strength. Before he took over the pub, he was a circus strongman and a professional wrestler. So while he waits for someone to take up his £500 challenge, Batty takes it out on the customers.
Charming fella. Okay, we've got more than one barrel, quite a few. We've got man against man, adding a little more spice to a competition in which all 8 take part.
Right, in the yellow lane we have Andy Drevietsky. And in the red lane... we have Peter Welsh.
On your marks and get set.
Well, here we go. The barrel lift now. Just a reminder that although they look like little bits of stones they're throwing up there, we're talking about approximately 150 pounds per barrel. That's the weight. 11 gallons of liquid in there. Beer, as a matter of interest, which I'm sure the lads at some point would like to open up and have a drink of. So, the first two in our competition. How are they doing so far, Jeff?
They're doing very well, actually. Andy's going great guns, and the problem of lack of oxygen doesn't seem to have affected them yet. But there you go. This Peter's having a little bit of a difficulty here now.
Yeah.
But they're going very well.
Now we've got the one barrel on there. We have a winner. In the yellow lane, Andy Drevietsky gets in just ahead. Peter Welsh looks slightly the worse for wear there, but nevertheless a very speedy time for him as well.
I see you've gone a whiter shade of pale.
12 barrels of 150 pounds each. A lot of effort. Speed involved too. Movement. Bit of suppleness too, I guess. But I managed.
Right, now we come to the second of our pairs now. John Sedge, who's in the yellow lane, as you can see there, and Solby Prince over in the red lane. They're on. Oh, my goodness, they are shifting these things. It's incredible. Remember, 150 pounds of weight in there. They seem to be putting a heck of a lot into a short space of time here, don't they, Jeff?
Yeah, Solby Prince, in fact, is literally throwing it on with no effort at all, and the other chap is having a slight difficulty, but they're both going very well. I think it's tremendous.
Well, just two more for Solby Prince. I can't quite see the other ones. Yes, there's a few more than two. John Sedge seems to be slowing up a little bit here. And the times to beat, 43.4. Well, a strained effort there. John Sedge still got his last barrel to go now. And probably, if you've got your colour television set up right, you'll probably see what Jeff was referring to about the colour going out of people's faces.
In the yellow lane, Richard Slaney. And in the red lane, Errol Carnegie.
On your marks and get set.
So, 43.4 is what the lads are looking for. And it's quite incredible. Richard Slaney is again just throwing them on, as if they were some sort of wreck. Mind you, Errol's not doing too bad.
Yeah, I think Richard's in the wrong trade. He ought to be a drayman. He's just literally just throwing them on there. We had a quick talk earlier on, and he said what he was going to do, and he's doing it.
So, Errol Carnegie in the red barrel lane there. He's doing quite well. But visibly, when they get down to the last 4 or 5 barrels, it's definitely a lot more weight for them to deal with. Looks like Richard is going to win here. Look at the time. The time to beat. Oh, he's done it. The time to beat was 43.4. We have a new leader. Slaney gets on on the truck himself, yeah. So Carnegie's last barrel coming up now. A little bit of a struggle, and a 55.5 for Errol Carnegie. So we have a new leader. Now we come to the two, arguably, the men that you must watch tightly now. Alan Taylor, you are second overall in the competition. Have you got any method that you've had in the back of your mind that you'd like to use on these barrels, having seen 6 guys go before you?
Well, they're all completely different ways, so I should imagine it's going to be brute strength and ignorance.
Really? Yeah. I'll lend the ignorance, you can have the strength. Okay. We come over to our current leader, Hamish Davidson. How are you feeling at this point?
Cramping up in the thighs at the moment.
You've got a problem with your thighs?
Yeah, since the morning. That track pool.
I see. So you're going to have to really exercise.
I'm a bit worried about it.
You're a little bit worried about those. Well, we'll see how they go out during the course of this particular event. Well, this is the one now. 42.3 is the time to beat. Hamish has already complained, Jeffrey, about having a bit of a problem with his thighs, a bit of cramp.
I think that's made him angry, actually, because he knows that he mustn't think about his injury, and he must go hell for leather and just forget it, and just go straight into the competition.
Yeah. So in other words, like most other things in any sport of strength or skill, the more aggravated you become, the more you like to pull out a good time.
That is very much so, and I think Hamish is on the way to a very good time at the moment.
Well, 33 seconds at this point, and Hamish has got 4 more barrels to go if he can keep that up. It's getting a bit tight now. The 42.3 is gone. So our 2 leaders overall are behind on this particular event. Maybe the strain of the morning's ones. Alan Taylor, oh no, he's dropped the barrel. Oh, what a shame. Oh, that was absolutely incredible. He dropped his barrel at the last second, and that lost him the particular lead in that particular event. So Richard Slaney, with a great effort, gets his 8 points, top of the table on the barrel loading with a 42.3, just beating Andy Drowiecki with the 43.4. And if you look down at the bottom of that table, you'll see that Alan Taylor, although he's got a 53.7, is sort of out of place. Well, the reason for that was because, in fact, he dropped a barrel, which is a little bit illegal. He did pick it up again, and in effect, he's moved down a couple of slots on that chart. And to the current situation, Hamish Davidson, who was at the top of the charts, is still there at the moment. In fact, he's joint number 1 with Richard Slaney, those two having 12 points. Interesting to note that the 2 people who had no points until this point in the programme were Andy Drowiecki, who is now in with 7, and Peter Welsh with 6. Well, now we come to the Dinny Steen. It might look like a little old rock to you. It is a big old rock, in fact. We should use the plural, really, because there are 2 Dinny Steens, and they were stones that were sort of originally outside the Potarch Inn in the Valley of Dee, and people used to tether the horses to them. And indeed, one Donald Dinny, from which the stone takes its name, who was a very great Highland Games athlete, was helping his father to build a new bridge, and there were some planks on one end which needed battening down. So what did Donald do? He just picked up these 2 stones, one weighing 340 pounds and the other one weighing 435 pounds, one in each hand, and walked them a full 5 yards to plonk them down on the end of the plank. Impossible as it may seem, that did happen.
Okay, John. On your marks and get set.
John Sedge moves off. And, oh, dear me. Well, there, that was it, because once that stone drops on the floor, touches the floor once, that is it. Errol Carnegie up with the stone, which started in front of his knees there. And in fact, I can tell you now that John Sedge dropped his stone there because it caught his right leg, which must be pretty nasty with this. Errol doing extremely well. It's a 25-meter course, and it's a timed event, and he is going to get there. There's no problem at all. Look at that. Superb. 18.2 seconds across that course of 25 meters.
On your mark and get set. Hands on.
Peter Welsh. He's getting off to a rather good start. What sort of method is he using, Jeff? I mean, has he got the 3 fingers touch on both? Yes, he has. I can see it now.
He's got the 3-finger grip there, and he's waddling nicely.
Oh, that was a good...
he might finish. Yes, he's going to
Yeah, that was a very good recovery, because that's the... Oh, dear me, what a excellent try. Superb stuff, because the stone went down just within about an inch of the ground. It looked like he was dropping it, but he pulled it back up, got all the strength he needed, and came back with an excellent score of 21.5.
Next to go is Sulby Prince.
So Sulby Prince moves up to the start line, grips the Dinny Steen, and seems to be off to a rather rapid start. Well, what about powerlifting, Jeff? Is that going to help him here? He certainly seems to be moving.
Yes, I think so. And again, this is a real youngster. Oh dear, he's dropped it.
What a shame. Now that he's limping a little bit there, it may well, the same thing might have happened to him as happened to John Sedge. Errol Carnegie with an 18.2, Peter Welsh 21.5, Sulby Prince a well-deserved seat in the far corner of the game. Oh, he's out for the count. No, he isn't anymore. Yes, that's the team doctor there. I hope I don't cut myself while he's around. So, known to his mates in the ring as the mighty Anaconda, he's not wrestled with anything quite like this before, I suspect, but he's doing very well. Alan Taylor is shifting it slowly but surely. He's faltering a little bit, but that is no mean feat. A very, very good attempt by Alan Taylor. I think there Andy seems to have certainly twisted his ankle. John Sedge is concerned about it too. Well, Richard Slaney now, who is, remember, overall joint first with Hamish Davidson, is doing ever so well. Is Jeff, he's doing amazingly well.
Yes, he's really concentrating now, and he's determined to finish, and he's moving very fast indeed.
Whoa. And even had the strength to have a little throw there. And that's, timing-wise, quite incredible. We have a new leader, 14.6, and isn't he smiling all over his face? He knows he's done a good one there.
Last to go, it's Hamish Davidson.
On your mark and get set.
Hamish, oh my goodness, he's going up too quickly. He leaned too far forward. That was most unfortunate for Hamish. He seemed to get his top body weight just too far ahead of himself there, didn't he?
Really unusual for Hamish. Being a Scotsman, coming from just down the road where the Dinny Stones are, and he's obviously practiced on them. And unfortunately, he's not having a very good day, and I think he's got one or two injuries in his thighs, and I think it's beginning to tell now.
So an excellent event carrying the Dynasteen, and those are the top three names that actually completed the 25-metre course, and a very good move by Richard Slaney into first position with the 14.6.
You've had a great day. You've had a couple of wins there, and you're looking forward to the rest of the competition. You are in the lead.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to most of the competition. There's a few events that I'm a bit wary of, like arm wrestling and Cumberland wrestling, neither of which I've ever done before. But all the other events are what I've done before and what yourself, we've both done before. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Hamish, first day, 3 events gone, lying second. Yeah. How do you feel?
Started pretty well with that track pool, but it really got to my size. And I've got the cramp now. That's why I did so badly in the last 2 events, especially that stone there.
You look very comfortable in the Dinny Stone. In fact, you skipped up the track there, and in fact, you laid right up to the, the time Richard Slaney come in.
Well, actually, I had it in my mind just to cross the line, setting a target. I thought everybody else would really push through. I was surprised at the end to get second place on that actual event.
What an excellent day. First day on this superb competition. Richard Slaney doing extremely well up the top there, 20. Not far behind, a bit of a problem for Hamish with pulled muscles and things. John Sedge, of course, has got it all to do. But we now, in fact, change our location. And we're going to take a trip down memory lane as we move along to Brighton's historic Palace Pier. Well, in the modern-day electronic machinery, you don't hear the clatter of old pennies like you do in here. This magnificent museum of the heyday of slot machines is where we visited now, and I suppose the really most important machines are the ones that test your strength. Like, for instance, this one that I've just dropped an old penny in, and I'm going to attempt to beat certain person's 380 with a 440. Not too bad. There are various ways of testing your strength by dropping a penny, and if we go down to the pier, we find that age-old, beautiful machine where you used to look up this great pole, smack down with a mallet, up goes your little thing, and ding-ding at the top, if you're lucky. Then, of course, we can look at the old punch bag. That was one of my favourites. I could never get anywhere with it, and I couldn't work out why the glass never broke. A penny in there, test your strength, and be a man. There was also, incidentally, a gentleman by the name of Zass, who, rather than actually physically punching anybody himself, would offer the general public his stomach at their convenience, and he used to take punches in the stomach and take some heavy ones at that too. And we move closer now to our next item with a gentleman called Apollon. He was a strongman who had an act in the Folie Bergère in which he played a prisoner attempting to escape from a prison cell. And he actually had real steel bars on stage and he used to bend them apart and whack out of them. And incidentally, he had a little wife who was very domineering and gave him plenty of stick.
Go!
So, here we go with the first bar at 12 millimeters thick, and we have Prince, there, Solby Prince, Andy Drobietsky and John Sedge doing their thing.
The only way to bend the bar is very quickly, in one swift movement, remembering that when the bar is bent, it heats up, and there's a molecule change. And if you stop and it goes cold, it's nearly impossible to start again.
And you can see the strain on faces there as the bars are being brought in. They've got to get into a position where they can fit between those two yellow wooden poles you can see there. Solby Prince is throwing his bar around. We're into the second group now, though. Let's have a look at them with that same 12 millimeter bar. Here we go. Okay. Welsh there you're looking at, who somehow always manages to make me think that he's constantly telling himself jokes while he's doing these strength feats. No problems here. Hamish Davidson getting in quite comfortably. Errol Carnegie, a little bit of a problem there for him. Put it round one. And this is only the first of what could be quite a few different bars.
Errol obviously bending the bar past the required measurement, but having difficulty in maintaining the distance because of the spring.
He's having the same sort of problem, obviously, as Solby Prince did in our first group as well.
I was watching the monitor, and you squeezed it together, but obviously there was a pain on your neck, and you whipped it off.
Well, obviously, I'm really disappointed, Jeff. As you understand, it's hard to keep level head when you're competing on it. You know, you think, I thought I'd bent the bar, and it was squeezing my neck, so I whipped it off. Obviously, I've dropped on the floor, and it must have opened out again. Also, I got a slight pain through my shoulder, and I didn't feel fancy cutting the blood off to me in case I blacked out and fell in the sea or something.
So Solby Prince there, a little bit sad, as we move up to 13.5 millimeters. That is the bar width now, just 3 people left in it.
The lads bending the bars quite easily, but again having to contend with the spring.
Welsh, no problem there. Look, little smirk on his face. Hamish as well. All 3 through. We're now up to 15 millimeters in thickness, and believe you me, that is a heavy bar. Hamish Davidson struggling. Welsh, just look at that. So much energy has to be exerted on these things. It doesn't look to me at the moment as if they are actually going to meet the 2 ends of these bars. I think they've finally met their match with 15 mil.
Come on, Hamish, come on.
At this sticking point, the bar is cold and dead.
So, they're getting very close to time. Last desperate throws. Slaney about to fall over the railing there, I think. Put them down. Final measurements have to be taken now.
Another win for Richard Slaney. Davidson still putting the pressure on in second place. I'm surprised to see a powerlifter such as Solby Prince's calibre only finishing with 3 points.
Well, let's have a look at the scoreboard here now. Richard, Hamish and Errol in the same position as they were, the top 3 positions. Alan Taylor has dropped down to equal 6th, while Peter Welsh has moved up to equal 3rd. Traditionally, lifting has been the definitive strength test. In fact, since the Middle Ages, troubadours and showmen have travelled throughout Europe performing great feats of strength. Dumbbells and barbells of various shapes, sizes and design were used for these challenges. And such champions as Professor Attila became really famous and set the lifting wheels into motion by passing on their skills to pupils. For instance, Attila taught Sandow, another famous lifter, who in turn gave the benefit of his knowledge to my namesake, W.L. Travis. And if you look at what Mr. Travis is doing there, you would probably quite rightly imagine that I must be descended from him, because I do daft things like that too. Well, gradually, weightlifting moved out of the circus and stage to become better known as a new sport. And as we can see in this 1904 print, it was getting really organized. As better equipment was developed, the old globes became collectors and museum pieces. And they've been gathering dust until now, when the Britain's Strongest Man team have removed them from their resting places, inserted the right amount of lead shot in preparation for event number 5, the barbell lift. John Sedge, first of all, lifting the 90 pounds, and you can see elbow rather well strapped up. And a struggle for John to get a good lift on 90. Well, that's in fact as far as John got with 90, because we move along now to the 150 weight, which Andy Drewiecki is now going to jerk up above his head.
Being an Olympic weightlifter, Andy has a super technique, utilising this to its fullest and making 150 pounds easy.
Well, he's pleased with himself. And look, Daley Thompson's popped along to the pier to have a look at the action and perhaps pick up a few tips. Will he get some tips from Selby Prince, the power lifter? He goes for 150. Bit of concentration.
No lift.
Oh, what are you talking about? It's on my
Bars
shoulder.
on your shoulder, that's no lift.
Oh dear.
I've been doing that all the way through.
Few problems for Selby there.
Got 30 seconds left. Put it on one shoulder.
I think perhaps with the right arm he meant that it should be on the right shoulder and he was using the left shoulder there. But he goes again.
There we have Selby getting angry with Oscar, the referee, because he wasn't sure what was wrong with his lift, and Oscar told him he was using both shoulders in front of, instead of the one-handed snatch, which is required in this event.
Edgeways on. That's an interesting and new method. Nobody's attempted to do it that way before. Peter is a good boy. He's trying to get underneath it. It's not easy.
Come on, lower.
He's got to get full marks for trying something different.
Lower, get down.
That's going to go... He's now got to get his hand back in the centre. He can't possibly lift it from that angle. I mean, he can't hope to. No, Peter, a look of slight despair on his face.
20 seconds left.
Well, I think, Dave, he's intending to have another go. He's intending to have another go. He's getting really aggressive.
Oh, he is getting a... Oh, he is going to snatch this thing. He's getting really annoyed. Oh, I don't think he quite made it. He really was aggressive. It was quite ridiculous. There was a distinct sort of sway, one way with the head and arms, and a different way with the legs. Were you aware of that as you did that, Paul?
I was aware of it, but I think there was a strong gust of wind at the time, so I think that was more or less what put me off there.
You are serious?
Very serious, yeah.
Oh, good.
The bar now at 170 pounds.
Well, let me tell you that Davidson and Slaney also did well at the 150, and now, as you see, into the 170. Drewiecki. A lot of concentration. Look at his face. One happy man. And that's a big weight. These boys really enjoying the competition. But as much fun as it looks, they do take it very, very seriously. Selby Prince for you now at 170.
Selby Prince now getting very aggressive, typical of a weightlifter in the powerlifting circles.
So here we go. Happy because he's making up for the fact that he didn't do too well in the bar bend and making light of that weight at 170, Selby Prince. Next up, it'll be Davidson.
Now making his attempt at 170 pounds, Hamish Davidson, holder of many Scottish powerlifting records, and in fact, one of the all-time great Scottish power athletes.
So, Hamish Davidson now, not a man to give up in any form of competition easily. Up she goes. No problem there. There was a lack of strain on Hamish's face when he walks away. I don't understand it at all.
Out of all the athletes in this event, he is the least suited, being 6'7" tall and twice as many levers as anybody else, and there he makes a good effort and in fact does the lift quite easily.
There's a sort of dead air about that, isn't there, at the end? Well, Drewiecki, Prince, Davidson, Slaney, as you can see, the top four have all got 170 pounds, which means we must find a positive winner. How do we do that? Well, we do it quite easily with the repetition lift. A 130-pound weight will be lifted by the competitors as many times as they possibly can, literally until they drop. Well, we can tell you that Richard Slaney beat Hamish Davidson by 1. He managed to get 25 lifts. Now let's see how Andy Drevietsky can do. We're not at all sure about the strength of this pier now. It is an old one after all.
And Andy coming up to his 21st lift, looking somewhat worse for wear, but being the competitor he is, I'm sure he'll go a lot further yet.
Yes, I'm sure he will as well, because he's got 25 to beat yet from Richard Slaney.
22.
There's 22. The pier taking a heck of a hammering at the moment, every time that weight drops down there. To remind you, that's 130 pounds that's being thrown up and down. Selby Prince there waiting patiently. He's next on.
35.
Well, as you can see, Richard Slaney's total has well been passed now at 35.
36.
And there we have a total of 36 for Andy, setting an unbelievable target for Selby Prince.
Well, we knew Selby was going to be a hot competitor when it came to any strength events, and here he is coming up to number 30.
30.
Selby lacking in finesse,
31.
making up with brute strength.
32.
Andy's done 36. Andy Vietski's at 36, so we got Selby doing now 4 to beat, and he knows
34.
he's going to town now.
35.
I mean, that ankle's got
36.
36, that equals it. That equaled Andy Vietski's record, so we're going to go one more. Are we going to have one more out of Selby?
37.
There we go, one past Andy.
38.
Okay, well now, of course, as you can tell, he'd like to get 50. He's well ahead, but he's just going all out. He's giving it everything he possibly can.
41.
And that's 41 for Selby. He's doing remarkably well, as he's got a bad injury to his ankle. In fact, he's using one of my shoes, size 13, because of the amount of bandage he's got strapped round it.
45.
45 just about does it. And there, from sheer exhaustion, Selby Prince goes down. And the doctor, who earlier on was patting him on the stomach in a friendly manner, of course, means business. He's here, he knows all about how to look after these lads. And Selby Prince is about to get his wind back now, after a great attempt. So after the barbell lifting then, Selby Prince into first place gets the 8 points with a magnificent 45 lifts. Andy Drevietsky with 36. Richard Slaney stopped after 25, knowing that he just had to beat Hamish there, who was in with 1 point behind him at 24. Okay, let's transfer those scores to the main scoreboard, which looks like this. Richard and Hamish still holding their original 1 and 2 positions. Interestingly enough, after some really good lifting there from Selby Prince, he's moved himself into joint 3rd position with Peter Welsh. We now come to something that perhaps, if you hadn't had a go at the other sort of strength events in this show, you will certainly have had a go at some time at arm wrestling. But I don't know if you're aware that in the old days, arm wrestling was a little dangerous because people used to put things like hot coals and burning candles on your arm as a sort of incentive not to lose. Now, there was one rather bizarre challenge from the great German champion, Sandow. He's the one on the left of your picture, incidentally, who made a bid to take over the top of the bill spot at the Alcazar Theatre from the French champion, Batter. And he turned him down point blank when he found out that it was required for this test that there should be a cork just about where the hand landed, if you lost, with a needle sticking out of it, and the first one to draw blood lost. Well, we're not going to draw blood on our competition. However, there may well be a little bit of needle, as you're going to see in event 6 now, which is the arm wrestling.
On my right, Richard Slaney. On my left, Selby Prince.
So, first heat now. Concentration on the faces, the correct grip, and they will be off. Adjustment of the elbows.
Take the strain. Go!
Richard's got the better leverage on this occasion, but
think Selby is going to use as much power as he can. But,
white knuckles there.
yeah. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard.
He's not there yet.
No, Richard will hold him in that position. There's a lot of effort expelled in this exercise. I mean, people might just think it's so easy, but I can tell you from experience, painful experience, that it's not.
Oh,
That's it. That's it.
well now, Peter Welsh, there on your left, up against the giant anaconda. And I wonder how many of you fellas watching have been thinking to yourselves, ooh, I bet I could sort him out on the table. Look, Alan's even got time for a giggle. He's a real giggler, Alan. He's incredible. He bursts into a smile at the slightest provocation, even in the middle of a competition, which I think is great.
Yeah, I think
Look at him. He's really going.
creates light-heartedness, but again,
If they both go, it'll be terrible.
thinking a little bit, I think laughing about a little bit, I think protects what is in fact going on underneath, and I'm sure it's no easy task out there.
Down!
Well, there's a little bit of a smirk on the face there. Bit of a comment from one of the bystanders on how they should do it. As we find Hamish Davidson, Errol Carnegie coming up now.
Free arm on the table, then.
So, now we come to the second semi-final. Peter Welsh will be watching this with interest because whoever wins this one will be against him in the final. Hamish Davidson on the left,
Take the
who
strain.
beat Andy Drevietsky,
Go.
and there on the right, Errol Carnegie, who beat John Sedge to get through to this semi-final. Well, these fellas giving it every possible ounce of strength. Errol Carnegie on the first of 3 pulls, as it were. It's getting close, and it's on. The first win then for Hamish Davidson. I've only ever tried this myself in a pub a couple of times, and it does me in. I don't know how these guys keep it up.
Take the strain.
Arm swap now. Oh! Wow. That was over rather quickly.
And Hamish winning that one very easily, and obviously Errol is hurt, grasping his shoulder. And I hope he's not injured too badly. And now we have the good arm, so to speak. And I'm sure Errol and Hamish will give it their best shot.
So, this is the big one. Oh, look at the sheer power that Errol Carnegie is putting into this. 2 shades of purple and white on Hamish's arm there, and it looks like it's all over here. That last couple of inches again, the strain is showing. A little bit of elbow lift there. Yeah, but Hamish is lifting his elbow too at this point as well, so I suppose with that amount of strength going, that the foot is allowed on both sides. He's got to get that wrist bone down, and he does it.
And now for the final in the arm wrestling competition, Peter Welsh and Errol Carnegie.
So here they come. This is the big one now. Peter Welsh done ever so well. Good shake of the hands. Errol Carnegie on the right, Peter Welsh on the left.
And on my left, Errol Carnegie.
Well, this should be good. We will now, we're getting used to the sight of Errol with his eyes closed, gazing heavenwards.
Take the strain. Go!
A little bit of elbow movement there. It seems that Peter is almost pulling Errol over towards him, Jeff, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Obviously, he's using his bicep as well as his forearm there, and he's trying to open up the arm of Errol. He's a longer man, and obviously when the angle is open, he becomes weaker, and then Peter can nip in over the top as he is doing at the moment.
Come on, Errol! Come on, Pete! Down!
Pass to Peter Welsh.
Now
Now we have Errol's bad arm, unfortunately, taking on Peter there. I'm sure they've had a little word with each other, not to really hurt it, but I'm sure that he'll give himself a good account. And here we go into the wrist lock position, and the referee starts them off. And I think it'll be short-lived. Errol trying to strain, lifting his arm, and it's all over.
So there's the state of play after a really exciting arm wrestling match. Peter Welsh, the lighter man, or certainly one of the lighter men there at the top of the tree with 8 points. Errol Carnegie with his wonderful way of closing eyes and meditating, getting in second place. And possibly the two favourites for this, Hamish Davidson and Richard Slaney, down in equal third with 6 points. So, there we go, the end of day 2, and what exciting competition we've had. I'm sure you've really enjoyed it. Richard Slaney still at the top there with a considerable lead. Errol Carnegie creeping up into 4th position there. And with these sort of middle section scores being as close as they are, it literally means that anything could happen tomorrow. The last day, a lot of extra adrenaline. And weather permitting, we're going to go down to the beach. Well, lots of smiling faces down here on the beach. We wanted good weather, and my goodness, we got it. This is the final day of the competition, and in the sweltering heat, you're going to see some incredible feats. Now then, we come to the bucket lift. That's our next item. Now, inside it, it's filled with lead shot, and it weighs 1 pound short of 4 stone. So there's a young child there, as far as the bucket weight is concerned. Now, incidentally, as a matter of interest, the guys will be sort of equaling a feat that was done many years ago by a gentleman called Steirer Hans, who in fact held out a bar at arm's length, and he had his young son on the end of that bar doing acrobatic tricks. Well, the bucket will stay still, I promise you today, and you're going to get a lot of excitement as we go into the next event, the bucket lift.
Go!
Now then, the time to go for there, 29.5, which I think, providing Andy does not foul by taking his backside off the backboard, he should really get through without too much of a problem.
Keep your shoulders back.
As you're watching that at home, just remember, it's equivalent to holding a young boy, 4 stone, out at arm's length. Look at the body starting to quiver there. Is there any breathing technique, Jeff, for this sort of thing?
Yeah, again, we've got this lack of oxygen depth in the lungs, and they have this tendency to block off
Yes.
the throat and the mouth, and there's no air getting in there.
Oh.
As you can see, it's beginning to really concentrate and tremble now.
Oh, incredible. What a great time. 45. That's the new one to beat from Andrew Drevietsky. Is it very difficult to actually keep your backside against that board? Because there must be a terrible temptation to throw your hips
The
forward.
problem is to counterlever the weight, and you have to have it. The weight tends to bring you forward, so you've got to counterlever it by holding your back against the board. It tends to pull you away, so you've got to keep back into the board. That's the problem.
So anybody here to beat you?
Yeah, everybody.
Well done, Andy.
Solby Prince.
Round here. You want to keep your hat on?
So Solby Prince there has decided to purchase himself a hat from somewhere down on Brighton front. And is this some sort of secret technique, Jeff, to keep the shade off the face? Will it help him at all?
I think it should keep him a little bit cooler, and the sun at this stage is now right above the competitors, and I think it'll do him a lot of favours.
Well, 45 seconds is what Solby has got to beat now.
Lower, 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 lower. Quarter inch. Go!
And the clock starts. The sheer concentration is quite incredible. It's interesting to note, as Jeff was saying earlier on, that bodies start to shake after a while with the tension of this particular exercise.
You See, the problem, David, is that you've got to lock out those arms, and at no time must you bend them.
Now, good effort there then by Solby Prince, who gets 30.6. Still the man to beat is Drevietsky. So now, bit of determination. I'm not sure if in the background I heard the voice of Pete's wife, who's around with him here today, because she certainly spurred him on to relift that Dinny stone when he nearly dropped it before. He's got a lot going for himself.
Just before this, David, Peter went to have a little dip to cool him down. He said it stuns him into action. We'll see if that really...
Oh, what a good effort, though. 32.4, Peter Welsh. And a big smile, as always, at the end of the event, which is super.
And our time for Peter Welsh, 32.4 seconds.
So, Errol Carnegie then, into his concentration. Errol, of course, is a big judo man, and in fact, I'm sure he's looking forward to the final event, it's the Cumberland Wrestling, but for now, he's got to keep that bucket up. And you see the plate underneath the bucket there. As soon as the bucket touches it, the micro switches go off and the clock is stopped automatically. Errol putting a tremendous out of effort. He really doesn't want to give this up. The hand, you notice, the judge's hand came across just before the bucket did drop, which I suggest must have been for some sort of foul from the back of the board. But nevertheless, 32.3 for Errol Carnegie.
And Andy Dowiecki's time of 45 seconds, still leading the competition.
Errol, you just missed by 1/10 of a second Peter Welsh's time there. How do you feel about that now?
Well, the strain was very heavy on my left shoulder. Maybe if I was in better condition, I maybe have done a minute. Actually, I was looking for a minute.
Lower, lower.
Go!
There we go then. Richard Slaney looking for 45 seconds. A lot of concentration. Remember, he's holding that out, arms fully outstretched. There is a pound short of 4 stone hanging on the end of his arms, and he must keep his back and his backside against that board. Look at that. Rigid as a rock. Well, he's starting to suffer a little bit there now. At the 30 mark, the bucket's going down, it's going down. And there you go, surprise, surprise. Richard Slaney, wondering what went wrong there, with a 31.7. Was there a problem as far as you're concerned with keeping against that backboard?
Yeah.
Because it seems the concentration between holding it out and doing that is pretty difficult.
Yeah, because especially when you get tired and your legs start to shake and your bum just comes away from the back, and then you tip forward to put it back on.
You can't say bum on the BBC.
Posterior.
So, as we just finished the last but one event in Britain's Strongest Man, interestingly, Andy Drevietsky is not touched with his 45 seconds, a smile on his face, and look at that, 0.1 of a second between second and third, Peter and Errol. And that can only mean good news for Peter Welsh in the overall stakes. Well, taking a look at the main scoreboard now, Peter Welsh indeed has done himself some good. He's crept 1 place up to number 2, pushing Hamish Davison down to number 3. The middle positions certainly have got it all to do now. They're very, very close, and there's going to be a lot of hard-fought battles in the Cumberland Wrestling, which is the final event.
Our first 2 contestants for the Cumberland Wrestling, Richard Slaney and Andy Drevietsky.
And here we have the Cumberland Wrestling with Richard Slaney and Andy Dowiecki. 2 opposites, if you like. One at 6'7", the other one around about 6 foot.
Well, the 2 wrestlers, let me have a little word with you about the rules. Basically, that the wrestlers are going to face each other. They place their chins on the opponent's right shoulder, and they use an arm grip in which the left arm is placed above the other person's right, as you can see there, and the right arm below the other person's left. The hands are hooked behind the back, and the rules are that if any part of the body apart from the soles of the feet, which obviously have to touch the mat, should touch the mat, then that person is deemed to have lost the bout. So in other words, the first one down, which in that case is Richard Slaney, is the one who cops out. And Andy Drevietsky will raise his hand and a smile to show us what it's all about. So Andy Drewiecki will be looking forward to wrestling one of these two gentlemen that you can see on this stage now. John Sedge on the left, shaking hands with Errol Carnegie. The last semi-final.
Go!
Oh, stop there.
John Sedge.
Well, John Sedge has gone through, obviously, there. There was a problem. Errol must have let go of his grip at the back for some reason. And John Sedge goes through to meet Andy Drewiecki. What an interesting turn-up for the book. John, very well done. I must confess, after you've had a bit of a struggle in some of the events, and now you come up against Errol Carnegie, who is, by definition, a good man on the mat, as it were, and suddenly you find yourself thrown into the final. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I'm pleased. It's about time I got somewhere in this competition, you know. I've done a bit of amateur wrestling, you know, and it's helped me, well, you know, to film matches underneath you.
And now to decide third and fourth placings, Hamish Davidson and Errol Carnegie.
So, third and fourth place now. This is the battle between, on your left, Errol Carnegie and Hamish Davidson on your right. Errol Carnegie, of course, will be feeling a little disjointed after the last bout, so perhaps this will give him that added surge he needs here to make sure he at least comes in third. He's not going to give up his... Oh, there's a lot of fast footwork from two very heavy men. Good stuff, yes. Down goes Hamish. Errol Carnegie pleased with that. Disappointed, obviously, about not getting to the final, but certainly pleased that he's managed to put Hamish on his back. So, as we move towards the rostrum for the final of this last event in Britain's Strongest Man, there should be something to watch. On the right there, John Sedge shaking hands with our adjudicator. John, of course, still suffering from a pretty bad right elbow, and he's up against Andy Drewiecki. Two men will be fighting hard, perhaps for different reasons, but it certainly should be a tough bout, this one. Any ideas on a winner here, Jeff, before it actually kicks off?
I'm not going to make any predictions here, David. It could be a good, tough fight here.
Well, getting out towards the edge of the mat, where, of course, it could be dangerous for either wrestler to fall. Trying to keep it near the middle. Now, there's a height advantage here for John Sedge. His arm doesn't seem to be bothering him too much at this point. That surge of energy he needs to win something here in this particular competition. He could have... No, I think John hit the ground first there. Andy Drewiecki wins that match. John Sedge comes in second place on that, and Richard Slaney, who of course now, as you worked out from the scores, waiting to congratulate the two wrestlers, he is of course our overall winner.
And there we have it with the Cumberland Wrestling results. A fine win by Andy Drewiecki with 8 points, and in fact a very surprising last place by Alan Taylor, who is in fact the giant anaconda from the wrestling scene, with only 1 point.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. At one time, I used to think I was tall till I got in amongst this lot. And I can tell you, these 8 fellas have provided us with some excellent competitiveness over 3 beautiful days here in Brighton. And, of course, the winner, Britain's Strongest Man. Can we hear it for Richard Slaney? And we bring on to present the prize the Vice Chairman of British Meat. We welcome David Parker. And there it is. David, thank you, the winner, and I think I can safely say we've had 3 days of great competition, excellent spirit from all these fellas, and they all deserve one big round of applause. From Britain's Strongest Man, thanks for joining us.
The contest to find the world's strongest man will be shown at the beginning of next month.
Hello, good evening, a big warm welcome to the Austrian Tyrrell for the full...
Welcome to sunny downtown Amsterdam. That's the famous Skinny Bridge in the heart of the Old Quarter, and we're here for one of the most unusual events in the whole European athletic calendar, a competition to find Europe's strongest man. And believe me, it's no competition for 19-stone weaklings. We've got 8 challengers drawn from 6 countries, all of them men of enormous physique with legs like telegraph poles and chests like a barn door. Literally, when they come through a doorway, the room suddenly goes darker. The extraordinary thing is that even these men of steel can be reduced to near exhaustion in about a minute and a half flat by some of the events they have to compete in. Lifting logs, bending steel bars, towing a 7.5-ton truck, loading 10 155-pound barrels onto a trailer. Indeed, that one's a real killer. But let's go straight to the action. Let's meet the 8 competitors.